Starting recording, are you? Okay, anytime.
All right, good afternoon to everyone. I hope you can hear me. Thank you, parents, for taking time to attend today's talk. Our principal, Mr. Peg, will be touching on the topics of the new PSLE scoring system, the direct school admission, and choosing secondary schools. We understand that many of you might have queries as we move along. You may make use of the chat function to raise your queries. We may not be able to answer all queries in this session, but we certainly will reply to you in due time. Do restrict your queries to the topics ahead. Also, I would like to remind all participants to mute your audio and disable your video while the presentation is on. I shall now call upon Mr. Peg to start today's session. Mr. Peg, please.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Lim. Once again, welcome parents to this parents sharing series. And as we have mentioned during our Meet the Parents session last week, that we will be holding more of such sessions, and each session will have specific topics that parents might be interested. So this is one of the very first ones, and we are going to be focusing on the new PSLE scoring, the secondary school choice, and also DSA. So the agenda for today, let me just make sure that it's working. Hang on. Okay, why is it not moving? Okay, so in terms of the agenda today, PSLE scoring is something that has been well publicized throughout the whole last few years. There had been periodic updates given by MOE, and also at the school level, we have conducted several briefings.
Mr. Peg, you are muted.
All right, so my apologies, the mute is on. The agenda for today will cover PSLE scoring, the changes to those, to the way PSLE is being scored, the Set 1 posting, and also the DSA plus some of our school actions in terms of guiding our students in their secondary school choice. Now, PSLE scoring, we have actually done several updates. MOE have been pushing out several updates over the last few years. And for our school, we have also conducted several parents briefing. So for those parents who are in P6 this year, while your children are in P4, we would have done one sharing them. So since then, there hasn't been many major updates. So we will take a very quick review because much of the information there is probably not new. In terms of Set 1 posting, I think last year we also had another round of updates that has been sent to parents. So again, we just take a quick review of what has been the information shared so far, and what are the kind of information that we should be expecting coming up next. The focus of today's briefing probably will be on the last point in terms of some of the new program that we are putting in place from this year onwards. And in particular, we are putting in more guidance for our children in terms of planning for their secondary school choice. And we are targeting at primary 5 and primary 6 for this year. So this is something that is very new, and we want to share this particular initiative with our parents about what is it that we are going to do this year to help our P5 and P6 students in terms of their secondary school choice. We also want to ask that do be patient with us. So because this is our first year trying to put in this new initiative, so it might not be perfect, but we welcome feedback from the parents with regards to some of the things that you will see progressively as we roll out more and more of such information to our students in terms of our guidance, and also when we share those information with you.
What like one piece. Yeah, and it's more smooth for the workmanship.
All right, so very quickly, in terms of PSLE scoring, this is nothing new. MOE, it has been a long journey. MOE has actually announced this change several years ago about the changes that will be put in place for PSLE scoring. So we'll be talking about that very quickly in the next few slides. What has been released in terms of the latest information will be about the indicative AL scores, cutoff for the different school types, and also the subject-based banding under the AL scoring system. My apologies, somehow the system keep going into the mute mode, so my apologies. So in terms of the PSLE scores, we'll be quickly running through some of the key message that has already been sent out. Just some of the reminder about some of the changes in terms of how higher mother tongue will be used in the new AL scoring system, and in terms of how the MT. Yes. Okay, my apologies. Okay, we will monitor this, some technical issue here. All right, so let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so for those of us who are still not so sure about some of the latest information about the changes in PSLE scoring, you can actually go to the MOE website, and all the information will be presented there, including this series of slides that we are sharing with you. Okay, so key thing about the change in the PSLE scoring is actually to reduce that fine differentiation of our students in terms of their ability. Because under the current PSLE scoring system, every mark counts. So the students have this pressure to want to secure until the very last mark. So that has kind of put in extra angst in terms of our students who are always pursuing every single point. But then when we moving into the new system, when we are going to band them in terms of AL scores, we are actually reducing that fine differentiation for our students. And that is also desirable so that the students will not be chasing after every last mark. But what will remain unchanged will be the coverage of the curriculum and in terms of the subject tested at the PSLE. All right. So PSLE remains as a useful checkpoint. So we just want to reiterate that PSLE remain a fair and robust system whereby the ability of our students at the end of their 6 years learning in primary schools are accurately presented and tested and shared with all of us. So in terms of the outcomes and attainment of our students in their learning will be accurately demonstrated through their performance at the PSLE. And PSLE then therefore remains the current fairest method in which we are assessing the students' ability and hence using these abilities tested to decide on their posting to the secondary schools. All right, so we have also mentioned about how the PSLE scoring system will be changed. So instead of all the different marks and the A stars, A's, we are going to, each subject will be allocated an AL scores, and the different band of AL scores 1 to 8 corresponds to the raw mark range. So instead of all the raw marks that will contribute towards the PSLE T-score, we have now banded the scores to give them AL scores, okay? And instead of the range of, say, 20 marks all the way to 90 marks, now you have AL level 1 to 8 that will be allocated and given to our students to indicate their scoring. So in the old scoring system, there will be more than 200 possible T-score aggregates, but now that we have aggregated them, you'll find that there are actually, from 200 possible scores, we are now reduced to 29 possible PSLE scores. Okay, so the indicated, so in terms of our PSLE AL scores, what are the kind of expectation of the AL scores in terms of gaining entries into the various streams has also been released and shared. So just in case some of us are very nervous about what kind of AL score would our children need to secure before they can enter the express scores. So just to say that from this slide, we are very clear that the cutoff for express is actually at 20 marks. So 20 marks is the total of the AL scores for all the 4 subjects. So if we average out to 4 subjects, each subject, if they can score 5 points, AL 5 or above, our children will qualify for express course. And if you're wondering again, AL level 5 correspond to what score? It will be 65 marks and above. So as long as our children are scoring 65 marks and above, they are assured of AL score of 5 or lower. Therefore, they will qualify for express. Okay, so with the different AL score range are indicated and have been shared with everyone. So in terms of the posting, we will just say that the new, so I think right now what most of us are anxious to know will be for the schools that our children will want to get in, what will be the indicative cutoff AL scores for these schools? Because in the past, what we do know is that when we want to enter a certain secondary school, we want to know what is the cutoff T scores. But now that T scores are no longer in use, we need to have a conversion from cutoff T score to cutoff AL score. So this being the first year that the AL scores will be implemented for our current P6 students. So right now for all the secondary school, there is actually no previous AL cutoff score to speak about. So that is something that ministry is currently still doing their simulations. I think it is something whereby they probably would take last year's P6 students and then they will do a simulation as to if the scoring by the P6 students were to be converted to AL scores, then what would be the likely cutoff for each of the secondary school look like? And they will release those information as the indicative cutoff scores for our different secondary schools. Now, exactly what will be the cutoff point of the secondary schools? Just like in previous years, all the indicative cutoff score is just an indication. The cutoff score for each school might shift depending on the number of places that they have and the number of students who are applying to the schools and what are the score range that they are applying with. So in some years, if let's say a particular secondary school start to receive more application from students of higher PSLE T scores, or in our case moving forward AL scores, then the cutoff score might actually shift to a higher cutoff. So over here, we are talking about how with the reduced number of scoring range, so we are expecting that at each of the cutoff level, there will be more students who are in the same position, whereby, say for example, the cutoff AL score for a particular school being at, let's say, 12 AL points, you might have quite a few students who have registered to want to enter the school at 12 AL points. And so how do we decide which child to admit first? So the information release also mentioned that citizenship will be important, and the choice order of the schools would also be important. And for the rest, who we still cannot decide, we will actually use computerized balloting. So just want to say that citizenship definitely will be one key factor. Now, the choice of school was being highlighted as an important criteria as well. So some parents did ask whether this will have an impact on the ordering of their school choices. So definitely when choice of schools is now becoming a factor in deciding the priority of admission, we just want to say that in this case here, the application of citizenship and choice order of schools would only come in important when there is a tie-breaking situation. So meaning that if you just made it to the cutoff score, then these factors will apply. But if you are already well within the range, say for example, in terms of application into a particular secondary school, if you know that the child actually, the score is well within the cutoff range of the schools, then actually you don't have to worry about the school choice or the citizenship at all, okay? So these are some examples that have been shared by MOE. So we will not go through here because some of these details were being shared earlier, and some of you might have already gotten this information from MOE websites itself. So parents who are interested, do go on to the MOE websites and take a look at it yourself. And if you have any questions, do raise it with the form teachers or the year heads. All right, so in terms of our subjects-based banding, of course, our students take standard or foundation. And again, in Admiralty Primary, most of our students will be encouraged to take standard subjects. There will be a very small group of our students who are taking foundation subjects as well. Okay, so subject-based banding, the rationale of it has been well explained, so we would not go through that here. The scoring of the foundation subject, this is the current system, which is the old system, but this year's P6, we are moving on to the new system, so it will be in terms of ABC, in terms of the old system of 1, 2, 3, 4. So the important thing is that ABC is just the grade given, but what is most important is that how do they convert to add on to the total AL scores. So this has also been shared with everyone that for foundation subjects, the conversion will be such that the range of scores for the AL, for the foundation level subjects, in terms of the AL score would range from 6 to 8. Okay, so meaning that once the child is taking a subject at the foundation level, the highest scores in terms of a lower number, the better. The highest score that they can achieve would actually be a 6. They will not achieve anything better than that. So for our school, I think we are also very clear that if the child has a chance to score 5 or even lower, we will actually be encouraging our children to take up standard subjects, okay, rather than cap the scores of the child at 6 by getting them to take foundation subjects. So that has been our policy, and it will remain so for the years to come. Okay, the indicative cutoff score for the various streams has been given. So we will not discuss further. We roughly know how they convert to each of the score. Higher mother tongue, we have mentioned that actually, unlike in the old system, whereby the taking of higher mother tongue actually will allow the students some further reduction of their T scores when applying to SAP schools. But under the new system, the higher mother tongue score will not contribute towards any reduction in terms of the overall AL score, but it will be used as a tiebreaker whereby when students are of the same AL scores trying to apply to a SAP school, the higher mother tongue score would actually be used as a priority of admission. Okay, but nevertheless, for our school, we still continue to encourage our students to take higher mother tongue because we feel that by taking higher mother tongue, they continue to strengthen our students' foundation in their mother tongue languages, and that will help them further in their secondary schools with a strong foundation. They don't have to spend as much time on their mother tongue subject, and they can devote more time for other subjects. Okay, so we will not elaborate on this too much. Okay, so the different school types, I think this was also released earlier, whereby given that the express scores range from 4 marks to 20 marks, so how would it differentiate between the different group of schools that are offering express courses? So we are saying that for the IP schools, the IP program would likely, the cutoff range for the AL score would likely be 7 to 9. Okay, and then for the rest of the express course, for schools that are offering express courses and O levels, it will range from 8 to 22. Okay, and the 22 includes the those that are express stroke NA. In terms of the IP program and in terms of the independent school, we are forecasting that the cutoff score probably will be slightly more stringent. So for the rest of the IP express course, it will be 7 to 9. But for the independent schools, because of the popularity, we are anticipating that the cutoff score will be reduced further from 6 to 8. So again, these are all indicative cutoff scores. We are still waiting for MOE's announcement of the cutoff scores for each of the schools that will be released later on in the year. All right, so next part of our talk will be to update everyone on in terms of what are the kind of additional support that we are giving to our children in terms of their secondary school choice. And for that, we want to go all the way back to their education and career guidance. Secondary school choice is just part of that journey in terms of making decision that is relating to their career choices. So right from the start, you see in this table that right from primary 1, we want to start equipping them with the whole notion about what is the individual role in the society. And then as the child move on from year to year, it is about finding out what are their interests, what are their strengths, and how that interest and that strengths allows them to find a place in the society, and what is it that they can do to contribute towards the society, and also contribute towards their self-fulfillment. So at the end of secondary school, one key decision that they have to make is actually the CCA choice. And then once they enter the CCA, then they will spend the P3 and P4 trying to learn the ropes through the exposure to CCA. And on top of that, even in terms of the academic studies, they will also be exploring what are their strengths, what are their interests in terms of the subject areas, and how from there they are going to form an impression or understanding about what is it that they're good at. At primary 4, we will actually even bring in the notion of how their personality and their preference can help them to evaluate further about what kind of job or work would they be suitable or interested to do when they grow up. So these are the exploration that the teachers will guide our students in exploring. So coming to the P5, actually that is when we want the students to start thinking very seriously and making plans about their secondary school choices. And right at P5, they have gone through their CCA exposure in terms of academic. They have also had their 4 years of exposure in terms of the different subjects. So at primary 5, it is really to ask themselves, where are their strengths and what are the interests or ability that will allow them to pursue certain career options. And with that, what would be the kind of secondary school exposure they will want in terms of the school types and also in terms of the CCA types that they will want to go in. So at this point in time, at primary 5, they will also have to say that, okay, if these are my choices, so based on their interests, based on their abilities, based on what they have experienced over the last 4 years, they should start thinking about, okay, what are my secondary school choice and what are the ways that I can gain entry into these secondary schools of my choice? How do I make a plan towards gaining entries into these secondary schools? Okay, so 2 routes that we will be guiding our students in. One, of course, traditionally is our PSLE. So they can look at the cutoff scores and then they can say what is their current performance in the different subjects. And in order to gain entry into their top choice of the secondary school, where is the gap? Okay, and therefore to decide whether that secondary school, that target of a particular secondary school that they want to gain entry to, is it a realistic target? If it's not realistic, then maybe they need to change their choice. If it's realistic, but their current performance is not meeting up yet, then which are the areas that they need to work harder? So we want to guide our children through this kind of secondary school choice and how that implicates towards their target setting and efforts to put in their academic studies. Alternatively, other than their academic studies, they should also think about gaining entries into these schools through DSA. And when it comes to DSA, it will, of course, be consideration of what have been their exposure in terms of the CCA or in terms of the student leadership exposure. So where are they right now? What are the areas that the secondary schools of their interest is taking in for DSA? So they then have to say, okay, do I qualify? Which are the areas that perhaps at primary 5 and primary 6, I can make another effort to develop further in my CCA or my leadership exposure so that I could qualify to try to gain entry into these secondary schools through DSA as well. So there are at least 2 different routes through which the students can gain entry into their choice secondary schools, and we want to guide them systematically over that thinking about their school choice and monitoring what is their current performance and where are the gaps that they need to do. So that will be starting from P5, and at P6, they will then have to make the choice. Now, this being our first year of implementation, of course, at the P5, you will actually go through a 2-year program in terms of systematically going through that questioning and choice making. For the P6, we will actually have to compress things a little bit because they didn't experience that when they were in P5 last year. So in P6, it will be something whereby we actually have to take what we are doing for P5 and put it into P6, but then to accelerate that a little bit so that we will then continue to put in the primary 6 elements to guide them towards the eventual secondary school choices. So these are the details. Some of the preliminary details that our team of teachers have worked out will be about how at primary 5, we want to get them to start thinking about it, the DSA and also their career choices. And term 2, we have to ask them that, okay, now that they have gone through perhaps more than a term of experience in the primary 5, both in terms of CCA and also in terms of their academic studies, to start to say, okay, what is going to be their likely performance at PSLE like, and what would be the kind of reasonable choice and target that they should set for themselves in terms of their secondary school choices. So to make a preliminary listing in term 2, and also to kind of chart themselves in terms of where are the gaps and what are the actions that they should perform to address those gaps. So term 3 and term 4, again, monitor some more about their CCA development. So hopefully that in term 2, if they realize that they need to do more in terms of their CCA exposure, hopefully they'll be taking some action. And in term 3, they can evaluate, evaluate the progress again, and particularly they would have had their mid-year results. Not so much mid-year exam, because we say that we have removed the mid-year exams, but then they will be having other assessments that will give them indication about where they are in terms of their performance in the different subjects. So they can make some progress and refine their options there and then. And at the end of P4, having completed the whole of their P5 program, they can then make plans for their December to say, where am I right now at the end of P5, at the end of year? Where are my gaps, and what is it that I need to take action of during my December holidays, so that I can try to make full use of the holiday period to bridge as much of the gap as I can. Then at P6, it will be about taking stock of their progress during the holiday, and again, come up with concrete measure. Term 2 would actually be the start of the DSA applications, and that's when they will have to kind of finalize their list of the DSA schools that they would most likely qualify, knowing what are the areas of DSA that the schools are taking in, and which are the schools that they will want to apply, and in what area would they be trying to apply DSA in. And then in term 3, of course, having gone through DSA, they would of course have some indication as to their potential of success in any of these DSA schools. Some might have already received perhaps rejection from the schools, and rejection is very common. So just want to say that when we are asking our students to try DSA, we are not saying that the chances of success definitely needs to be very high. We will still tell our children to go and try it, to gain some experience, especially if they are being called up for interviews. I think these are all good opportunity for our students to gain exposure to how do they prepare or handle interview situation. So whether successful or not, to us, it might not be the most important thing. But to us, having that opportunity to go for it and to try it out is an experience that we feel is worthwhile for our students to gain. So these will be some of the key things that will happen for our school in terms of our guidance for our students to plan for their DSA and also their secondary school choice. Okay, so just want to spend a little bit more time to share with everyone what DSA is all about, because we do know that currently there are certain understandings amongst the parents that might be a little bit outdated, and we just want to share our perspective about what is our school view in terms of what DSA is all about and how our students can benefit in terms of thinking about school entry, secondary school entry through DSA. Now, okay, key thing here is that in the past, when DSA first started, it was only some of the more prestigious schools that are allowed to offer DSA. But actually, since a few years ago, all secondary schools are already offering DSA. So technically, all schools, including the prestigious schools and all the rest of the neighborhood secondary school, are all able to take in students through DSA. So it really, unlike the olden times whereby it is those students who want to consider gaining entries into elite schools, then they need to look at DSA. But for the rest of the students, DSA is like out of their picture or out of their consideration. So we want to say that this is not the case anymore, and that therefore, even if the aim of our students is to a more neighborhood school, let's say in our Woodlands area, we have Riverside, we have Evergreen, we have Woodlands Rings Secondary. These are some of the more popular secondary schools within the Woodlands area. We just want to say that these schools take in students through DSA as well. And our children who might want to gain entry into these secondary schools should have a thought about whether they are able to enter these schools through DSA. Okay. So for the integrated program schools, of course, they can admit more students, and some of the other more specialized schools like SOTA and I think NUS High and even sports schools, I think 100% of their students' entries are through DSA. So other than these specialized schools, all secondary schools can admit up to 20%, and for the integrated program schools, they can admit a slightly higher percentage, which is 30 to 35%. The range of talents that the students will be able to apply, okay, wait, let me just go up. Okay, will be able to apply through would include these areas: sports and games, visual, literary and performing arts, debate and public speaking, science, mathematics and engineering, language and humanities, uniform groups and leadership. So this whole selection indicates a wide range of talents that our students can consider trying to gain entry. But one key thing that the children need to be aware of is that not all secondary schools offer DSA entry through all the talents that are listed here. Most of the secondary school would only offer a few of these talents, but not all. So the students have to still be careful and go to the school websites to check out for the schools that they want to gain entry to, what are the areas of talents that they are taking in, that they are allowed to take in. In fact, in this case here, the talents that the secondary schools can take in for DSA are actually decided by MOE. So MOE do that particular distribution to make sure that schools around the same areas are not all competing for the same talents, that they want to differentiate a little bit, that for the different schools, they are taking in talents of a different nature so that they don't all trying to compete for the same pool of talents. Okay, so for students who are interested for DSA, they need to check out the secondary schools for the talents that they are taking DSA in. And this one here, the wording is a little bit small, but this indicates some of the rough schedule of the whole DSA process. When will be the exploration, when will be the application period, when will be the interview and selection period, and when will be the result release period. Okay, so that is some of the indicative time frame. And the actual thing, I think the key thing about the application and the selection would actually be concentrated during May to September period. Okay, so that will be the key thing whereby our students need to take action to send in their application before the due date, and also watch out for the interviews. Likelihood is that this year, given the COVID-19 period, it will be similar to last year, whereby we are anticipating that the interview session will be conducted through an online format. But then again, things might change as we move forward. So we would also take instructions from MOE as the situation changes. All right, so these are some of the areas that we will be asking our children to consider in. So in terms of their interests in the area that they will want to apply in, and whether there is a match. So they might want to enter a certain secondary school, But if the DSA that the school is allowed to take in doesn't match the talent that the child is actually strong in, then actually DSA might not be the suitable route for the students to consider gaining entry into this particular secondary school. Okay, so whether the child has the CCA experience and achievement to help them make that decision about the kind of schools that they can enter through DSA. Okay, and most likely, of course, the secondary school that they will want to try to enter through DSA usually will be a slightly stretched school in terms of their academic ability, that it will be slightly maybe academically out of range for them, and that's why they want to try to see if they are able to enter through DSA. But also bear in mind that while these schools should be slightly stretched school for them, but it also should not be too far-fetched in terms of that match towards the child's ability. Because say, for example, if our child is actually of a slightly weaker academic ability, that they might be just qualifying for express stream, but if they try to gain entry into, say, RI through DSA, then even if they are being successful to enter RI, they might find that because of that disparity between the child's academic ability and the general population of the students in RI, then they'll find that that might not actually be the best choice for them in terms of the choice. So that's why we are saying that in terms of the guidance that we will be giving to our children will be that we will actually get them to consider very carefully about how stretched a school should they be aiming for. That the stretch must be something that they are able to handle and not something that is going to be way beyond their range, such that they will be actually very stressed or unhappy after they get entry into the schools. So these are some of the things that we want our children to consider very carefully. Okay, culture and ethos is again something that we want the children to be considering, particularly if they want to gain entry. Say, for example, of course, some of the well-known schools like the Raffles or even the Hwa Chong and the Nanyang Girls. We all know that the Hwa Chong and the Nanyang Girls are SEP schools, and therefore they are going to be having a strong focus in terms of the Chinese language ability and culture. And we ask our children whether that is something that they are comfortable with. Coming nearer to home, our Riverside Secondary, we also know that Riverside Secondary is also designated as a Tamil language elective program schools. So again, the ability to match those special programs that the schools are going to be focusing on would also be something that the children will want to think through carefully, whether they match those cultures. Okay, we are also going to be, because of our plan to get our students to think about the secondary school choice early, so we will also be this year making a special efforts to reach out to many of the secondary schools, particularly the secondary schools around our Woodlands area, to invite them to come in to give talks to our students earlier, so that our students are armed with some of the preliminary information to allow them to make their choices for the secondary schools. So that will be something that we will be doing this year, and when more details come out, we will actually also be sharing with the parents. Okay, so with that, I've finished sharing with everyone what we wanting to share today. So some of the steps and information might still be a little bit sketchy at this point in time, but we want to assure everyone that we are in the process of working on it, and in time to come, you will be hearing more from us, or you'll be also hearing from your own children when they carry some of these messages home to you about the kind of guidance that our teachers are giving, and also the kind of questions that our teachers pose for our children to think through or even to discuss with you when they go back home. Okay, so with that, I know that many of you have key in questions through the chat sites. So let me perhaps get from my team some of the questions that perhaps will require myself to address for everybody. So no. Okay, so all are being addressed through the reply that our team has keyed in. So perhaps any parents who perhaps want to raise questions through the mic, you might want to unmute yourself to raise your questions if you do have.
Hello. Hello. Hi. Hello. Can you hear me?
I cannot hear, sorry.
I'm so sorry, we can't hear you very well. You may want to speak up.
Sorry, I cannot hear at all. I don't have the headphone. My apologies.
Hello. This is Johnson speaking. Just to be sure, is the audio okay? Can I ask a question now? Hi. Yeah. So I have a question on this school order. Just to be sure I understand it right. So assuming there's a student, she has a so-called a better AL, but she couldn't go into the first choice. Okay, so when come to the second choice, assuming another student also apply the same school, meaning the second choice school. But the first child, even though she choose the school as a second choice, she has better AL. Does it mean that she is definitely a stand before the second child who has a not as good AL, but put the second school as the first choice? Yes. I just want to be sure. Yeah, okay. So then from that, it sounds like it's almost the same as the current practice. It's just that, I mean, when there's a tie, then people will use the so-called school choice as a tiebreaker. Other than that, it seems that there's no difference than the current system. Yes,
your understanding is correct. So a child with a better AL score would always be admitted first. Okay, with regards, disregarding the school choice. Okay, the school choice, in terms of the hierarchy of the school choice, would only come into play during a tiebreaker situation. So if, like you said, child 1 has a better AL score, the child will go in first. The second child with a worse, slightly not as good an AL score will be considered later. And the tiebreaker will only be tie-breaking within the same score. So a child who is with a better score would have been admitted already. So you are also right to say that, therefore, this new system is still very similar to the old system. It's just that during a tiebreaker, the school choice becomes important. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other?
Parents, do you still have anybody else who would like to raise any more query? Mr. Pig is here to address.
Hi, Mr. Pig. Can you hear me? Hello, Mr. Pig.
Yep, hello.
Hi, I want to share with you, if my child just a normal choke ball member, I'm not sure whether he's in school team or not, but do he have a advantage or privilege to use choke ball as a DSA?
Okay, now we are getting into some of the nitty-gritty mechanics about the DSA application. Of course, some of the most obvious direct choice in terms of DSA will be that, okay, I'm in basketball primary school. I apply to enter secondary school using CCA, which is basketball. That is the most direct choice. But if you say that my child is in choke ball, then what will be the option available for me? Is it just secondary school with choke ball? And is choke ball even a a kind of popular CCA that schools will be offering DSA, we have question marks. For us, I think what we are shaping for the children is that don't be too, not to be too one-track mind, in that sometimes their experience in one particular CCA actually could open doors for them in other areas, other than the most direct choice. One of the examples that we are exploring internally as part of our design of our education package is this thing about like football. Football is one CCA that our students are in. But what if this child in football want to apply to a secondary school that is offering rugby? So does it mean that because there's no rugby in Admiralty, therefore the child cannot apply to this school with rugby? The answer is no. The answer is actually that the child have to look at the experience that he or she have in football and then to ask themselves, what are the relevant skills, transferable skills that will still put them in contention to be able to be accepted by the secondary school for rugby. Okay, so it actually calls for the child to be able to distill the generic exposure. Say, for example, it is about maybe sportsmanship. It is about the ways of training. It is about diligence and organization, determinations that the child can put forth in terms of their application to a DSA school offering rugby and to see if they can get through. So we are also not saying that this is a definite method of success, but we are saying that let's not close our doors too quickly and let's try to maximize the kind of possibilities or opportunity or chances that we might have by trying to distill whatever that we can and try to use those things to try to go and open as many doors as we can. So this is also something that we are also learning with our children, because some of the conversation we had with our children last year was that we asked them, why are you not applying for DS? And one of the replies that they give was that, oh, because I didn't want to continue with this current CCA in secondary school. So that was one of the reply that some of the children gave us. Then we said that, but actually, it should still not stop them from applying. Okay, if they are not interested to continue with this CCA, they should still consider the generic skills or related skills that this CCA has equipped them with, and then to try to say, okay, if let's say in secondary school, I no longer want to play football, I want to play rugby, okay, how can my football experience help me to try to open door through rugby? So that's some of the things that we are trying to help our students to see through. So I hope that also answer your questions about for a child in tchoukball, what would be the opportunities that the child can open.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Big. So you means that even he is in tchoukball, he can use tchoukball to apply for a secondary, which is maybe a basketball,
Yes.
CCA basketball to enter. But then now I have a difficulties is because his tchoukball is crash with the structure program. Both are on Wednesday, and other days that he have tuition and other things to attend. So I'm thinking to withdraw him from tchoukball. But then after your explanation, I think his tchoukball does help him on the DSA. So can you all arrange the tchoukball on other day that which no clash with the structure program?
Okay, when it comes to clashes, again, our anger towards the children will be that there's no way the school schedule can meet everybody's needs. So again, and we want to position this as these are actually real life issues that the children would have to consider. There's no guarantee. So it cannot be that, oh, principal, because you say that there's a chance, and therefore now I give up my tuition and then I focus on tchoukball. And then in the end, you find that, oh, tchoukball actually not successful. And then you start to come over to say that, hey, but the principal you say can go in. I just want to say that we are not saying that there's a guarantee. So there are always risks. This is something that we cannot guarantee. And therefore, it is actually for the child to really exercise that kind of choice making and in terms of that risk taking, so that calculative risk that the child will need to consider, the family will need to consider, and also how you are able to arrange your scheduling so that you can optimize being able to get the many pieces that you want to get. You might not be able to get all, but how do you optimize your arrangements such that you are able to get as much of the pieces that you want as possible? Yeah, so it's something that I cannot answer, I'm sorry, but it's something that the child and the family will need to consider.
Okay, because it's clashed with the school structural program, so it's not the private tuition.
I think in terms of the school afternoons program, I think we also say that it is actually optional and that there's no compulsion to attend. Yeah, so if the child really have to go off because of tuition or other exposure outside, then there's actually no compulsion for them to attend.
Okay, so if let's say I plan to use chalkboard apply under this DSA, I think that they are going for external competition soon. So if they kids like if let's say the kids have the experience in the competition, we have a higher chance for a DSA.
Okay, so all these competition exposure, of course, will help. But sometimes it's, okay, so a lot of things are not so simplistic as in that, oh, the team won #1 in this competition and therefore my child would have a higher chance. Because we all know that some of these games are group team games. So in an interview, the child will be asked, what are the kind of experience that you gain? And we want to say that, like, over the last year and even this year itself, there is a likelihood that some of the competition might not happen. And therefore, in terms of the kind of assessment of the child's ability in the actual game itself, is going to be slightly more blurred in terms of the possibility. Like last year, there was no competition and the decision of the children's entry actually wasn't through competition result at all. And some of that consideration might actually flow into this year's consideration as well. Yeah, so that one we cannot we cannot say definite, and even the number of competition we are not able to confirm at this stage.
Okay, understood. Thanks, Mr. P.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hello, Mr. Peck. Hello. Hello. Sorry, can you hear me? Hello. Hello.
Sorry. Would you like to speak up, because right now it's rather muffled and low the volume?
Hello, can you hear me? Okay.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Yeah, okay. Hello.
Yes, would you like to speak up?
Okay, can. Okay, actually I have similar question, but I just want to double confirm that, meaning that outside out of the CCA that
My apologies. So sorry, I really cannot have difficulty hearing you. Can you type your query in the chat and then Mr. Peck will address it?
Oh, okay, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to raise through the chair? If we
Hi,
can't
Mr.
hear you,
Peck.
maybe you would like to put in the chat.
Hi, Mr. Peck. Can you hear me? Yeah. Hi, Mr. Peck. I want to ask one question about the is it teacher will advise us whether the kid is suitable for DSA, or will advise us like my kids is, let's say their result is quite good. If let's say I try my best to go to a DSA, whether will help him more, or it is better for him to like miss this chance to direct for the PSLE is better.
I cannot hear. I cannot hear. Yeah, what is it?
Sorry, would you like to repeat the question again?
Advise if kids are suitable for DSA. Do our teachers advise the kids whether they are suitable for DSA?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let me try. Okay, so I think what we are getting, the question is just that how would the teacher advise if the kids are suitable for DSA? So to answer for that is that we are not saying whether the child is suitable or not suitable. I think we are saying that all childs can consider using DSA to gain entry into a school of their choice. Okay, all child should think about that. And we will not stop any child from thinking that. Whether the child can enter these schools or not, actually very much dependent on what school is the child applying and where are the competitions. Okay, so let's say, for example, if you ask me, let's say just take football again, in my football team, do I say that only my best player should go for DSA and my new students who might not demonstrate very high level skills therefore should not apply for DSA? My answer is no, because within my team, it might be such that this child is the weaker ones. But amongst the students who are applying to a particular secondary school, my child might be a stronger candidate. So actually, it's something that we don't want to close the door for our children too quickly. So definitely from the end of us as teachers, when we advise our students, it's not about telling them that this door is closed, this door is closed, this door is closed. No, it is about like all doors are, there's a potential for all the doors to be open for you. It is how you make that choice and how you position and angle what you have vis-a-vis the school that you want to enter. Yeah, so the answer to that question is not a very direct and obvious one, but it's something that we definitely want the children to arm with a thinking of hope and possibilities, and to exercise that choice and strategy diligently and with careful considerations. Yeah. So it's a positive thing. So we want to get them to think that it is all possible. It depends on how you think and strategize. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. So is it the CCA teacher or CCA club actually will helping them as well? If let's say I decided to use your CCA as a bonus point to enroll for different school, like to apply the DSA, is the CCA teacher will helping us as well, or how we going to approach the teacher to help us?
Sorry, can you maybe go through that again? I'm not quite getting the logic.
Okay. If let's say I'm going to use a CCA, like maybe he was a leader on the CCA and he did do a lot of competitions. So how can I make use of this, right? Or what the school will support as a parent to go to apply this DSA?
Okay, so okay, so let me maybe try to address this thing here. It is really very much about the effort from the child. The school, we will support as much as we can, but our job, and we want to make it very clear, and we draw the line here, that we are not going to inflate anything. Now, if the secondary school asks us to give a certain testimonial or certain recommendation, or ask our teachers of our assessment of the child's ability, we will give our truthful report to them. Okay, but generally secondary schools tend not to do that. okay, because they didn't want to, I think this is something that at the school level, MOE also cautioned the school not to generate too much paperwork. Okay, and also some of these thing about getting the schools to write testimonial, it has also been something that has snowballed into something that at the secondary school level, some of us, I mean, I was in secondary school before, so I have received some of these letters that they will write until the child is very, very, very good. But ultimately, we say that to what extent can we trust this report? And a lot of time, the answer is not really. We still need to see the child and assess the child on our own and then make the decision there. So based on that, therefore, we the kind of inflation or recommendation for the school might not help. So chances are that the secondary school will not ask. If they ask, we will give our truthful assessment. But really, that has not been the current trend. Now, we will advise the child to consider and think through about the application. But the school, I think to be fair to all students, we are also not telling the teachers that you have to push it through and push through the application. Ultimately, we want to say that it's the choice of the child. So the child would have to take actions. We are not in a position to recommend, because all schools are doing DSA, and our positioning here is that we are looking at DSA for every child, and not just about our star player and wanting to secure our star player into another star secondary school. That is maybe olden times, some DSA actually they do that, but that's not the culture that we want to encourage here. Yeah, so it's very much the child's choice and the child's effort to want to apply to these schools.
Okay. Thanks for your information. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, hi, Mr. Peck.
Yep. Hi.
Yeah. Okay. I want to ask because I'm not so familiar about the path of my child as well as what are the suitable secondary school for my kids. But then I'm actually quite interested with this DSA. So I'm not sure will the teacher, be it form teacher or the CCA teacher, if they are able to identify what are the what are the area of the talent of my child. Can the teacher also maybe make recommendation like to the parent? What are the school that we can consider to apply for the DSA? Because I don't want to let my children to choose at the end. I think they are actually too young to make the selection.
Okay, understand. I get your point here. So definitely, our teachers would want to work towards that kind of knowledge. That say, if the child is of a particular ability range, and then first thing first is that our school teachers will need to be armed with the extensive knowledge of what are the different secondary schools and taking in DSA in what area. Okay, and then to know that for this child's academic ability and skills range, what would be the best choice, and we will want to recommend, make that kind of listing available for our children to consider. So I can understand that from a parent angle, you might say that, oh, my child actually don't really know. I myself as a parent also don't really know. But if you ask me whether I want my child to be going on their own to make that choice, as a parent, not very comfortable. So question is whether the school will support. So I would say that we will try our best to do that. The truth also is that because we are still very new in this, so I am not so sure whether we are able to really be up to date in all the different areas that the schools are strong in. So this is something that definitely along the way, we will want to build up this knowledge and to be able to be more helpful in helping the children and parents make the choice. So this is something that we definitely will work towards. Okay, but in terms of like you asked me whether I'm confident that we can do it now, I would say truthfully, not really, but we will work towards better understanding as we move on. So definitely this is something that my heads are also sitting in this segment. We are also hearing you loud and clear in terms of this need that the parents would want to have support from the teachers, and we will certainly go and look into that and see how much we can gather, because some of this information actually is quite specific to the secondary schools. Like they have been operating DSA, they have been selecting the children in the various areas of talents that they are allowed to take in. But what is the outcome of that selection? What is the criteria that they're looking at? Actually, these are not openly shared to the rest of the school. So it actually requires us to perhaps approach some of these schools to say, are they able to share with us more information? So these are certainly some things that we are trying to work out with at least some of the schools that we are partnering in. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, my another question is, because just now you share about the DSA preparation actually started from P5. Okay, so my kids currently is he's in the P6. That's why all the preparation that have supposed to be done during P5, I think have already over lah. So my question is, so we can still like based on where he is right now, then to do the DSA application, right? Or do we
Yes.
still need to go through the P5 process in order for us to make the registration?
No need, no need. So because as I said earlier in the presentation that because this is the first year, so our P6 students actually didn't go through the whole year-long P5 program. So what we'll do is that we will actually compress the P5 part. So the necessary part that they should do, we'll actually compress it so that they will do it in P6, but it will be like maybe in a double quick time so that in a very short period, they will go through it, which just want to say that it might not be a bad thing. And some of the things that we are planning out for the 2-year process is actually a plan. I don't think the P6 actually miss out. I mean, we have to start somewhere. So this year P6, we are also going to be helping and supporting them in one way. So yes, they have a slightly shorter runway, but we are still learning from this process, and it might not necessarily be terribly disadvantageous to them. Definitely, I would say that this year, our P6 will be better equipped with the knowledge and skills to do that selection as compared to previous batches. Because when we were talking to them in previous years, we were like, oh, some of them actually are, there are a lot of things that they really do not know. And that's why we feel that we want to support them better. So definitely this year P6 will definitely be faring better as compared to previous years. All right.
But do we need to let teacher know that we are interested so that teacher they can prepare for our kids for the DSA?
I think the preparation of DSA is actually to be rolled out to all students. So all students should be thinking through that. Of course, once the information start to roll and the children in the different stages are being equipped with certain questions and things to think about, you can say, oh, at the appropriate time, say, okay, why not ask the child, go and indicate to the parents, and because you know that this has been discussed in class, therefore, if you want to perhaps write or message to the teacher to say, oh, I understand that my child has gone through this stage of that whole educational career guidance in terms of selection of schools, can I maybe also indicate that I would like my child to be considering DSA into these schools in these areas?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Is it, are there any more questions from parents that you want Mr. Peck to urgently address? Otherwise, we will still go through the chat like we said, and then we will get back to you if we can find that there's still anything outstanding that we did not address.
Thank you.
We seem to
Thank
have
you,
quite
everybody.
a lot of questions on DSA. Ultimately, I think it boils down to what your child is interested and passionate about and whether it matches that of the secondary schools. So we cannot say for sure what exactly the secondary school wants. So but we will help your child, I think, in the process, and we see how it goes, right? But it is not, I mean, it is just one of the route. Like Mr. Beck said, there is also the other route, which is a normal PSLE route. Of course, if they can qualify via DSA, we encourage them. Yeah. Okay, if there isn't any more, then we will probably close this session here. And thank you very much, everyone, for your time. Like we said, the slides and recording will be made available. Look out for the info in our website. Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thank you, parents. Thank you.
Thank you.
You may exit this meeting now. Thank you.